Um, I'm Colin. Like Kate said, I'm the head of recruitment for the Data School New York. I'm also an alumni of the Data School program. So I've been sitting kind of in the same seat you are right now, hearing about the Data School, maybe for the first time. Maybe, your interest has been piqued and you want to get to know more. But I've been there. And so it's a pleasure to actually be here talking to you, introducing you to the Data School. Which has really been a life-changing opportunity for me, and I hope it can be for you all as well. There's some names I recognize in the attendees. Annie Zhang in particular, welcome. It's good to see you here. I'm really excited to talk to Flatiron today because, man, since we first got to know you all, we have been getting some fantastic applicants to our program, and I count Annie among them. So, it's really exciting to be having this partnership with Flatiron starting, and I hope to see many, many more applicants going forward. All right, so let's dive into it. Like Kate said, we'll save like most of the question and answer for the end, but if you've got like a burning question, you can drop it in the chat. I've got it open, and I'll keep an eye on it. All right, so a little bit more about me. You already know I'm the head of recruitment for the Data School New York. I was in cohort 17 of the Data School in the UK. Now they're all the way up to cohort 41, which is kind of amazing to think about. And I started my Data School contract in October of 2019, finishing it in the very beginning of February 2022. And at that point, I had the opportunity to come over here to our brand new New York office before we had even had a cohort start and take on this recruitment role. So originally from the States, but I did get to do the Data School program in the headquarters over there in London. Nowadays, in addition to my recruiting activities, I'm a core consultant with the Information Lab, so I occasionally will do client work around Tableau and Alteryx enablement with our customers. And I provide general mentorship and technical support to people who are in the Data School. I'm also the UK coordinator for our TIL Plus program, which is a program that we run that provides free pro bono services to nonprofits that are using Tableau or other sort of data visualization tools. I'm also the co-lead of the Accessibility Tug. If you've never heard of tugs, these are a super helpful thing to get involved in if you're interested in moving into working in Tableau. It stands for Tableau User Group, and tugs can be based around locations. So for instance, there's like a New York City tug. They could also be based around industries. There's a financial services tug, for instance, or they can be based on topics. So that's like mine. We're focused on accessibility technology, thinking about how do we use Tableau with screen readers? How does somebody interact with a visualization if they don't have a mouse? All sorts of things in that vein. So pretty interesting. Would highly recommend getting involved in tugs if you are interested in moving into Tableau. All right, so enough about me. Let's talk about the Information Lab and the Data School. So starting at the top, the Information Lab, this is the company that runs the Data School. And it is the largest specialist data visualization consultancy in Europe. We have offices in 8 different European countries. You can see them on the map there. The headquarters, the first one that started in 2010 was in London, and it's since expanded out from there. I'm really excited because I am going to Amsterdam in September, and I get to spend a week in the Netherlands office, kind of learning a little bit more about what they're doing over there before then moving on to the London office. So a really international company. We are also some of the best known partners for Tableau and Alteryx. Tableau you've likely heard of if you're here. Alteryx maybe not, but I'll be talking a little bit more about our vendor partners later in the presentation. But we have long-standing partners with them. The Information Lab focuses on kind of 2 different things. One is license sales. So we help sell licenses for Tableau and Alteryx to companies primarily in the European and UK markets. And then we also do lots of consulting. And sometimes our customers both buy licenses from us and consulting. Sometimes they're just one or the other. But it's worked out really well in terms of getting our name out there. Now, a little bit of the history here, the information lab started in 2010, and as they grew, they started to have more and more demands on their time because they were some of the best people that you could hire to help your company use these tools. And so our customers kept, asking for more and more of our consultant time for longer periods. Hey, can we have somebody for 6 whole months? And as a small company, they were like, we just can't support giving one of our consultants to you for that amount of time. Uh, and so they looked around, they're like, okay, who else might we be able to hire? There really wasn't anybody on the market that they hadn't already hired to do this level of work. And so instead of just throwing up their hands, what they decided to do was actually create the data school, which is their own internal consultant training pipeline. So basically hiring people and then training them to be the consultants that they would want to hire. That began in 2015, the first cohort in London. And it met with a huge amount of success. So much so that in 2018, they opened up the first data school office in Australia, in Sydney. Now there's 3 actually in Australia, in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And then in 2022, we opened up a data school in New York, as well as in Hamburg, Germany. So if you have any friends that are in the UK, in Australia, or in Europe, this data school thing is also an opportunity for them. So how does the data school work? Well, we recruit 8 people, so cohorts of 8, every 2 months. And we recruit them for basically a 2.5-year contract, which includes 4 months of initial training. So you start with 4 months of training, learning how to be a consultant in Tableau and Alteryx, and that's followed by typically 4 6-month placements with our clients. So you're working as a consultant of the information lab at some pretty prestigious companies. I'll show you some logos on the next slide. And we've had over 400 consultants go through this program. So it's been highly effective. If you're familiar with the world of Tableau, you might have heard of a term called a Tableau Zen Master or a Tableau Visionary. These are some of the people who are recognized as the top users in the world using these tools. There's 50 of them. 10 of them have some association with the information lab. Either they came through the data school or they've worked for the information lab. So pretty incredible track record there, being recognized as the top users in the world using these tools. Here's a few of our clients. What I'd love for you to get a sense of is just, these are well-known names. They're going to be great companies to have on your resume at the end of that data school contract. But also it reflects a variety of industries, right? So you've got companies like Vanguard and JP Morgan, so big financial services and banks. You've got entertainment like Paramount Pictures. You've got management consultancies like BCG, real estate, JLL. Then even some other things like Kimi, which is a locksmith company, Pearson, which you may have heard if you've ever tried to do like an online certification exam, or Avis rental cars, right? So all of these companies have data, and all of them need help understanding what that data means. And that's where we come in. What we try to do is over the course of your 4 placements, give you exposure across a variety of industries. So you can kind of suss out for yourself what kind of industry you might want to work in the longer term. So the mission of the data school and the information lab really dovetail. The one on the top left here is the information lab. It's to equip thousands of people and companies with the skills and software that they need to make sense of data. And then in a very complementary way, the data school's mission is to introduce thousands of people to careers in data analytics. So, we are training people with the skills they need to enable companies to understand their data. Now let's dive in a little bit to the tools that we use to do that. So the first one's called Tableau. And here's just a few examples of data visualizations that are made in Tableau. What I want you to get a sense of here is just the sheer variety of types of charts and graphs that are available to you as a Tableau developer. So you've got obviously your basics like line charts, bar charts, things like that, but then really rich mapping functionality, the ability to do sort of density plots, area charts, and create really compelling visuals and dashboards. So one of the things that I love about using Tableau is I feel like I get to use both halves of my brain. I get to use the sort of analytical, mathy side of my brain, but I also get to use the creative design side. And once you learn Tableau, it feels like a very natural tool. It's it's it has become sort of like an extension of my brain as I explore data and use it to kind of visualize meaning. The other tool that we use is called Alteryx, not to be confused with Qualtrics, which is a surveying tool. This is Alteryx. It's a data preparation workflow automation tool. So it looks like this. And some of the similarities with Tableau here is that it's a drag and drop tool. So the way that both these tools work is, you're taking tools or fields and you're bringing them into a canvas in order to realize whatever process or visualization you're trying to create. So in this example workflow, we've got an input data tool that's bringing data into a workflow. Then we're putting it through a variety of different kinds of steps, like finding just a unique value within that data set, filtering to a specific subset, calling out to the internet to bring back information based on data in our data set, and so on and so forth. We can do things like joins and unions. We can use regex. We can summarize the data. We can even do really advanced data modeling, moving into like the machine learning space using Alteryx. So all the way from very basic to very advanced. And so a lot of people, when they're thinking about careers in data analytics, ask this question: well, don't I need to be a coder to be a data analyst? And the answer, at least for the data school, is no. That's not to say learning Python or R is not a valuable skill. Certainly SQL is pretty much a must for anybody who wants to work in data analysis. But to join the data school, you don't need to have any of those skills because Tableau and Alteryx are drag and drop tools. This is great for me because I have always struggled to learn coding. I feel like I'm always like 3 lessons in, and then I'm like, yeah, I've got other priorities. So this is a great thing for me. You all probably have better coding experience than I do. And I just feel grateful that we have tools like Tableau and Alteryx that put this into more of a visual interface for assessing data. So if we're not looking for people with coding backgrounds, again, it's not a problem if you do have that background, but it's not specifically what we're looking for. We're looking more for these kinds of qualities in a successful data schooler. So a really strong willingness to learn, somebody who's comfortable working with numbers, reacts positively to feedback, has strong time management skills, confident presentation skills, generally just good with people, people who have strong communication and writing skills, and then just generally interesting backgrounds and skills. I can rattle off a million different kinds of backgrounds that people came to the data school from. Just in cohort 5, we have somebody who's an Air Force veteran, somebody who was a professional dancer here in New York, somebody who is actively getting her PhD in public health as she goes through the data school. Really, because we don't put those same barriers around like coding expertise into our application, we get people from so many different backgrounds, which leads to it being a company that's really fun to work for because you feel like you're working among a really diverse group of people that all just really love to nerd out around data. For my part, I actually come from the nonprofit background. So I worked in environmental conservation. I also used to work for PBS. I worked as a digital marketer for public television for a couple years too. So literally takes all kinds. And in terms of educational background, the only thing that we really require is a high school degree or high school equivalent. Beyond that, you can really have anything. And we have had folks that never went to university, started going to university, never finished, people who have PhDs, really could be anything. The skills that I'm showing on the screen really are the most important thing that we're looking for. So then what are we going to offer you in return? So we're going to give you this structured and professional training in leading software. And I haven't really stressed it yet, but that training, that initial 4 months, is still paid. You're getting paid, we pay you your full salary, even while you're in that training. You'll also become part of this diverse and global network within the field of data analytics. Like I said, the Information Lab is one of the best recognized consulting companies with these tools in the world. So if you're trying to get a job, not only will the company be recognized on your resume, you'll also have plenty of connections through other people who have worked at the Information Lab or the data school and have gone on into the industry. You'll have an exceptional head start into a career in analytics because you'll not just have the skills, you'll actually have the experience that you need to get great jobs, right? You'll have 3 to 4 companies on your resume that you can point to and say, yeah, I worked for one of the biggest banks in the world doing this. I worked for this extremely well-known consulting firm, like that is probably far more important than any skill set or certification you could have. We're also going to give you training in the soft skills that you need to be successful as a consultant. So presentation skills and project management skills, stakeholder management. There might also be the opportunity to travel for certain clients if you want to. For instance, Vanguard likes to have their consultants come down to their office in Malvern, Pennsylvania every couple months. We have other clients that also have that opportunity. And then just generally a unique working environment, right? So like I told you, we come from a lot of different backgrounds, but we're all real data nerds. We're also an exceptionally collaborative company. Many of us who are now in the core team, so like the permanent roles in the company, came through the data school ourselves. And we know exactly what it's like to be at the beginning of this journey and not knowing a whole lot about how to do this work and needing to ask lots of questions. And so there's a real culture of paying it forward. When you were at the very beginning, you asked a lot of questions, you got a lot of help from people who knew more than you. And so as you get more and more experience, it's kind of incumbent on you to pay that back for the folks who are newer. So I really love that culture within the Information Lab. And you can see based on our Glassdoor ratings here that's not a rare opinion of the company. People really do love working here. So you could too. Just some nuts and bolts too. We will get you certified in Tableau and Alteryx. At the very least, you'll get your Tableau data analyst and your Alteryx core certifications. Many, many people go on to get further certifications while they're with the data school. And we'll pay for any certifications that you get in the field while you're with the data school or the Information Lab. So, if you wanted to go on and get certified in Snowflake or something in like Salesforce or AWS, like the company would also pay for those certifications. Salary and benefits, we're super transparent about these. Sorry, one second. So during the training and the first 2 placements, the salary is $60,000 a year, and that increases to $65,000 a year during your final 12 months in the data school, so placements 3 and 4. We also have 25 days of paid time off per year standard, which is amazing. That's one of the benefits of working for like a UK-based company, is that they see like anything less than 25 days would be like inhumane. So it's wonderful to work for a European company that has that attitude. We also have a competitive benefits package that includes health insurance, dental, vision, 401k match. We have gym benefits through Gym Pass, and then commuter benefits as well. Obviously, you'll be part of that incredible professional network that the data school has built over the last 8 years. And I have truly never seen somebody struggle to get a job after the data school, because with the training, certification, and experience on your resume, you'll have plenty of offers. And then just generally, you get to be part of our innovative, fun, and collaborative team. We love to have socials. We go out together. We have board game nights. I'm really excited because there's a full stack person who's applying to our next cohort named Liz, who's a professional dungeon master. So I'm really hoping that we hire her so we can play lots of Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, there's just a lot of fun to be had while you're working with the data school. All right, and let's talk a little bit more about what those placements look like after you finish your training. Here's some of the things that you might be doing as a data school consultant. So you could be going into a company that has, existing business intelligence or reporting department, and you're there to just kind of help provide extra capacity. Maybe they've got like a laundry list of dashboards that they need to build, and you're there just as a trusted resource to kind of help build all that stuff and work through the backlog. You could also be bringing new data viz experience to a project or to a team. So maybe you're the first person in that team that is an expert in these tools. And so you're kind of helping them get started and getting them on the right track to success using those tools. We also have placements that are really more focused around what's called enablement. So what enablement means is when you are doing like the teaching of these tools. So not only do we teach you how to use them, we teach you how to teach the tools as well. So you might be on a placement where you're focused on training people in a company how to use these tools themselves. And it does say grow Tableau and self-service, but that could also just as easily be Alteryx. But what you won't be doing is, running a whole BI team or like a big project on your own. Like that's out of scope for the data school, but I do think that people coming out of the data school would be qualified to do something like that. And so then what happens at the end of the data school? So you've done your 4 months of training, you've done your 4 6-month placements. What happens next? Well, a little over a third of the people finishing the data school actually wound up taking a consultancy role with the Information Labs core team. So that was the original purpose of the whole data school, was to act as this internal training pipeline. And it still very much does do that. So our senior consulting team is made up of many, many data school alums. You could also get a job in data analytics with one of our clients. So this is the most common thing that people do. Our clients know exactly how good data school folks are and are always scrambling to get them for full-time hires. So that's a really easy transition, and we can help make introductions to companies that might want to hire you. And then everybody else does something else. So you could take these skills in Tableau and Alteryx and do any number of things. We've had people go into the nonprofit sector. We've had people go become contractors for the UN. We've had people get jobs with competing consulting companies. Really, it's up to you at that point. Another thing that people do sometimes is become freelancers. So if you want to be your own boss, you could definitely have the skills to go freelance. All right, so if I've done my job well so far, this is the question you're asking yourself. How do I become a data school consultant? Well, you can break it down sort of into 3 stages. In stage 1, you will create a dashboard using any data that you'd like. And you can fill out our online application at thedataschool.com/apply. I'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of these stages in a moment. But after that first stage, we'll select a group of people to go into our interview process, which begins with a 30-minute phone screen with one of our coaches, where you'll present your dashboard and answer some behavioral and consulting questions. And then if you make it to the final stage, instead of getting to pick your own data, I get to pick your data and I send the same data to everybody in the final interviews. You have about a week or a little more than a week to build a visualization based on the data that we send, and come in for ideally an in-person final interview. But if you're not in the New York City region, we can also conduct it remotely. So again, you'll present your dashboard, present your findings, and then we'll ask you some more questions around the world of consulting. Now, you don't have to have professional consulting experience to get a job at the data school. I do want to stress that, but you should be doing research on what a consultant is. Just some hints, make sure that you're ready to apply. You don't want to just apply with the first thing you've ever created in Tableau, right? It won't be good enough. That's just the truth of it. So get some practice under your belt first. You can build up a little bit of a portfolio on Tableau Public, which is the free platform for learning Tableau that Tableau offers. We want to see that you've looked at online resources, not that you're an expert, but just that you've made an effort to learn. More about that first stage, when you do apply, we want you to tell us a little bit about yourself in your application. There's a box that just says, anything else you'd like to tell us? And you can treat that like a cover letter if you want, or you can just make it a little bit less informal. But tell us those weird things. Tell us the fact, about being a dancer and why you want to now be a data analyst. Tell us about being a dungeon master, right? That's the kind of stuff that's interesting to us. You can upload a resume, but we don't really use them to decide who gets a job. We're much more interested in the visualization that you submit and the things that you kind of talk about in that cover letter. You can think of your Tableau Public profile as just like a mini portfolio of your abilities, right? This is one thing that we will look at. Of course, you don't need to have multiple visualizations on your Tableau Public profile, but it looks good if you do. And when you send it in, be prepared to respond to feedback, because we will actually send personalized feedback to everybody who sends us a visualization. That's something that we commit to doing for you because you've put in the time to build a visualization for us, right? So as long as you apply by our feedback deadline, we'll send you some personal feedback that you can use to create a second draft and then submit that second draft to us. On the phone screen, you want to be prepared to demo your visualization. Focus on your analysis. What have you figured out about the data, right? Think about answering those why and how questions rather than just the surface level what, when, who, right? We're looking for smart analysis as well as well-designed dashboards. Should be simple to understand. And we will ask you a couple questions that are more on the behavioral consulting side. And then for that final visualization, it would be very helpful to study some previous successful applications. We post every single successful application to our website. So I'm going to click on this link right now just to show you all. But we have all of these what did it take blogs. So for instance, cohort 4. These are all the successful applications. So the final data set had to do with Survivor here. So you'll see a lot of them are based on Survivor. But then there's also a data set that had to do with congressional travel. So you can go to any of these blogs, look through people's visualizations. There's links to both their final interview viz and their initial application viz in the blog too. So if you want to see what their initial one looked like and their final, you can check that out. This is the best way to understand what we're looking for in a data school application. We're literally putting it right there in front of you. This is what success looks like. So try to model what you're doing on what successful people have done in the past. All right. Another thing that we'll do for you in that final stage is pair you up with a current data schooler that you can get feedback from. So, try and create a first draft and then send it over to your data schooler. They'll give you some more feedback and you can make a final draft. If you haven't noticed already, we're really into feedback. It's something that we think is critical in our consultants to be able to hear the criticism of their work and improve their work based on that criticism. So we find it quite important to look at how people react when they get feedback. Then during that final interview, think about that story that you're trying to tell, right? We want to see your data storytelling skills. And then just be enthusiastic, right? We're going to work with you for 2.5 years. And so we want to see people that are passionate about data analytics, about working for the data school. This is your opportunity to convince us that you're right for the role. And if you don't make it the first time, you can apply again. We have a cohort every 2 months. So don't hold back. And I've talked to people all the time. They're like, oh, I'm just not sure I'm ready to apply. I'm not sure I'm ready to apply. And then they never apply. And it's like, well, yeah, don't count yourself out, because this is not the kind of job where it's just one and done, right? We're happy to continue assessing your skills and your fit for the data school, as long as you continue to keep improving, right? If it seems like you're submitting the same level of thing to us every time, we might say, you know what, this might not be the right role for you. But if we can see that improvement happening every single time you apply, then we're happy to have you continue to apply. And just a note too, I know that this is like a lot of text. So Kate, I can share this slide deck with you, and you can share it out to the folks on the presentation as well, because there's a lot of good links here.
Sounds good.
All right. So similar to stuff I've said before here, Makeover Monday and Workout Wednesday are community initiatives that you can use to build up your Tableau skills. I would recommend giving both of those a Google search. And then we've got some links for places to find data. I personally love data as plural. I find many of our final interview data sets on this platform. The open data portal for the city of New York is also great. The most important thing here is to just choose data that you actually have some interest and passion about. Like, don't just choose something because you thought it would be easy data to visualize, right? You're going to be much more successful if you think first about like, hey, what am I actually interested in? Or, go through some of these aggregators and find a data set that piques your eye, right? Piques your interest. And then just some more tips that you can scan at your leisure when you get this, this presentation. Lots of blogs and learning resources. And then, yeah, some important dates. The next cohort that you can apply for, cohort 7, will begin on December 4th of this year. The final deadline to apply is October 12th, but if you want to get that feedback from us, we ask that you apply by October 2nd, so we have time to give you feedback and you have time to implement it. If that's not quite the right time yet, you could also apply for cohort 8. We haven't posted that opening yet, but once we do, we'll share it with Flatiron, and Flatiron can share it out with you all. But that cohort will begin on February 5th, and the deadline to apply will be December 14th. All right. I'm going to pause on this slide for a moment and look at some of the questions in the question and answer. We have a couple from Aidan here. Do consultants work in teams at partner companies, or are individuals placed at a company? It can work both ways, Aidan. So sometimes you are with a team of other data schoolers, sometimes you're flying solo. Just depends upon how many consultants that client needs. And the second question, are New York Data School consultants all working together full-time on site out of the New York City office, aside from occasionally traveling to company partners? So during training, you are expected to be in the office like 100% of the time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5:30. Once you are on client placement, it's sort of hybrid. We'll expect you to be either in our office or like on your client site a couple days a week for the first couple months, just as you adjust to being on placement. But then it's kind of completely client dependent. So, I mean, we don't have any clients that are requiring 5 days in the office. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, but like JP Morgan, for instance, asks that consultants are there like 2 days a week. And so if that's what the client's expectation is, that's what we'll do. And people are always welcome and encouraged to work at our office. We're about to move to a brand new office that's going to be completely our own space on 14th Street, right off of Union Square, which is really exciting. So I imagine lots of people will want to just come to work together because it's easy to collaborate. It's easy to kind of get support if you need it. But it is ultimately, your choice combined with whatever the client needs.
Oh, and I was also thinking of some questions while you were presenting.
Yeah.
So if you have a couple of more minutes, I wanted to ask for the group two themes here. One, we know it's very clear how much you prize feedback. You look for how candidates receive feedback, respond to feedback. You mentioned in some of these slides and stated in some of these slides that more than technical skills, the candidates that stand out are candidates that have these behavioral strengths in communicating and presenting. I know for one that many humans, including Flatiron School grads, might feel relatively confident, very confident in their communication skills, but when it comes to the storytelling and the presenting element, you might get hung up a little bit. Do you have recommendations, resources that you would want to share for folks who want to build that muscle a little bit in the storytelling and the presenting side?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like practice, right? And don't just practice with people who are like data people, practice with your friend or your family or maybe your partner, right? I remember when I was practicing in my application, like I probably gave my presentation to my girlfriend at the time like 6 times. I was lucky that she kept listening. So I think practicing is a huge element of it. We also have some videos. Let me see if I can find one real quick that just talk about, what consulting interviews look like. Let's see if I can find that really quick. Gotta do some tab reorganization here. Here it is. So this is an interview between our global head coach, Andy Kriebel, and one of our core consultants who actually never went to the data school, but has been a professional consultant for quite some time. And just talking about how to ace a consulting interview. Actually, no, this is with Ruth. So this is somebody who went through the data school. But yeah, I'd highly recommend watching that one just as getting some experience like what skills we're looking for. And just drop that in the chat.
Thank you. And it looks like we have another question that came through.
Okay. Salome, what have been successful elements of applications that stood out to you from students that graduated from the data science Flatiron program? Interesting. So specifically from Flatiron. So what I've seen from Flatiron, I think, is a really good combination of the analysis that we're looking for and going beyond the surface level, but also with good design, right? And it's really the combination of those two elements that make a visualization stand out. You don't have to be amazing at either one, but if you can show that you're good at both, then you're going to be really strong. So thinking critically, thinking about whether the things that you're saying actually make sense, thinking about if there's like inconsistencies in the data that you're using. All of that is really valuable, and I've seen that from Flatiron grads.
Thank you. If we don't have any other questions come through, I did have one just out of my own curiosity, which is around AI. AI is a broad term, but there's definitely a lot of public attention on it these days. You mentioned a little bit about machine learning, and I'm just wondering what you've noticed change in the consultant work or in, visuals around AI anything.
Yeah, well, I've started using AI like every single day in my work. I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I better learn how to use this or it's going to take my job. Um, so I think it's fantastic, and you also see a lot of hype coming out from like Tableau and Alteryx about using like analytics in conjunction with natural language generation, like what ChatGPT does, in a way that like you could almost like chat with your data and ask questions in more natural language about the data. Now, the thing is with that uh, is that it requires a lot of data organization, labeling, and preparation on the backside of it before you can actually do that kind of cool natural language generation. So these skills around data preparation, data literacy, all of that is still important, is still necessary if you're going to be using AI to like query your data. Now, what data visualization will look like seems to be changing. I mean, if you were at like the conferences these last couple of years, like, or just in the last year, it was all AI, natural language generation, everything. It still remains an open question to me whether that is hype or whether that is actually going to be coming into the way businesses use these tools. But I feel like being at the information lab and being surrounded by people who are interested in these topics and actively like learning how it all works, I feel very well positioned to be at the forefront of whatever changes happen.
Thank you for sharing. I want to make sure there's time to do the Tableau Public demo too. So,
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah. Cool. So my last slide here, just a couple more links to share with you all. We have free trainings in Tableau and Alteryx every Thursday. You can find those at our meetup.com website. This is my email address. Feel free to email me if you want to have a chat or if you got more questions. And then if you're here in the New York area, or even if you're not, we have meet and greets that we run like every couple months where you can come to our office, meet people who are actively in the data school, talk to them about their experience. And you can find that at thedataschool.com/events. And we have a mailing list because there's always a mailing list. So that's a good way to just keep up to date with like which cohorts are coming up, like interesting new blogs with tips that are coming out, all of that. All right, so now Tableau Public. So if we go to public.tableau.com, this is Tableau Public. It's a little bit confusing because it's both a like application that you can use to design visualizations on your computer and this public forum where people can post visualizations that they've made to share with the world. You can see that there's like a viz of the day every day where you can see an interesting example of a visualization made in Tableau, and then various things that might be trending. So for instance, I can see that this sample soft drink sales dashboard that was made by our head coach, Andy, is trending. Do we have anything else on here from data schoolers? Not the moment. Oh, there's one. So Serena is a UK data schooler and is currently a featured author on Tableau Public. So if you want to download this tool, you go to Create, and then you can download the Tableau Desktop Public Edition. That'll be a free tool. It's most of the functionality of Tableau. The only real difference is that you can't save stuff locally to your computer. Everything has to be saved to this sort of public Tableau Public platform. You can still hide things that you've saved to it, but it does have to get saved in the cloud. So you shouldn't use private data with it. Let's take a look at, just a short example of, I'm going to start building a Tableau data school application. So let me go to my favorite site, dataisplural.com. This is like a weekly newsletter just of interesting data sets that are available around the internet. So let's see what was in the most recent edition. We got information about maps. We got summary statistics on various different kinds of sweeteners. We've got Federal Reserve communications, winning lottery numbers, English families. Let's see. Let's see what some of these lottery related data sets are. Okay, so now we're on the data.newyork.gov website. I can see that there's winning numbers for the lottery cash for life. Sure, why not? I don't know exactly what we'll find in here, but I can see then some metadata. That means data about the data. So like how big it is, who made it, how recent is it, all that kind of stuff. And then I can see the examples of like what the data actually looks like. So we have the drawing date, the winning numbers, and what the cash ball number was. So maybe this wouldn't be the best thing to use for a data school application, but let's download it anyway and just see how it would show up in Tableau. So I'm going to click export and export the CSV. CSV is a text file. It's usually a very, it's a pretty efficient way to store large amounts of data. So I can see it's downloaded now. I'm going to open up Tableau. I have Tableau Public. I don't have Tableau Public on my computer, so I'm just going to open this up in the Tableau desktop application, which will look pretty similar. So Tableau is opening now. And as soon as it opens, I'll drag it up onto my screen that you all are seeing. All right, so this is the Tableau interface. You've got your recent workbooks in the middle. You've got learning resources on the right side, and the various places that you can connect to data on the left. So I know that that CSV that I just downloaded is a text file. So I'm going to go to my downloads and choose those winning numbers. That takes me to a data source window where I can see the fields in my data and get a little preview of what that data looks like. You can see I can choose different data types. So it's guessed the data type that I want here is a date. It's correct. This is a string, and this is a number. So maybe what I'd want to do is just look at like how many drawings there have been over time. So maybe I take my draw date and put it on columns. And I'm gonna just do this by month. So how many drawings were there every month from 2014 all the way to today? And then maybe I'll just count these winning numbers. Okay, so I can already see that maybe there's some insights to be had here, right? Something happened from June to July. Seems like maybe they doubled the number of drawings for this Cash for Life lottery. And we could look into why that might be. There also seems to be some spikiness. It's not totally clear why, but we could look into that. If we wanted to flatten out that spikiness, maybe we could look at it instead of by month, we could look at it by year. So I'm going to click on my dates here on the top, and I'm going to change the aggregation. Instead of aggregating it to the month level, now I'm going to aggregate it to the year level. So I can definitely see that spike here too. You always want to be careful when you're looking at line charts and you see this like downturn in your data for the last point. You always want to think critically and be like, well, wait, is 2023, for instance, actually done yet? No. So this doesn't represent the full year of data, and that's why that drop is occurring, right? I see people in applications make this mistake all the time where they're like, oh my gosh, there seems to have been a recent downturn in whatever it is, car accidents, homicides, numbers of, calories and all the burgers that Burger King has produced. And, it's like, no, it's just that this last date period isn't complete. So, that's what I'm talking about when I say like critical thinking about the data is really important, because that stuff always jumps out to me. Cool. If we wanted to, we could see if like any winning numbers have ever been repeated. So these are all of our winning numbers. And then if I count how many of those winning numbers show up and sort this descending, nope. Looks like every single one has only ever been selected once. So sorry, doesn't seem like there's any super good numbers here to pick. We could, if we wanted to, with some data prep, break out these numbers and test and see if there's any particular individual numbers within this 5-number series that show up more often than others. My guess is it's truly random, so there wouldn't be, but you never know until you look. Right, so that's just kind of like a little demo of, oh, I found something that seemed like it was interesting. I downloaded the data, I brought it into Tableau, and then I think even more than a data visualization tool, Tableau's real power and strength is in this data exploration. Like you saw how simple and intuitive it was for me to change the view, create new charts, answer questions that I had that were showing up in my brain, right? Just with a couple clicks. It's really, really straightforward. And like I said, it does sort of become an outreach of my own brain as I'm doing data analysis. So I love Tableau. If I wanted to publish this for the world to see on Tableau Public, I would go to this server option and then Tableau Public and save it to my Tableau Public profile. And if I were to apply to the data school with this, I would take the link that it creates for me when I publish it to Tableau Public, and that's what I would put in my application. All right, so that was a whirlwind demo, but did any questions come up for anybody through that? Or Kate, do you have any final questions or thoughts?
As a non-technical person working for a boot camp that runs technical programs, no, not immediately. Just a lot of numbers floating around in my brain after watching that. But yeah, that's really, you're right that it does seem, even for me, a person who's not been in this coursework through Flatiron School, that Tableau does seem intuitive. What's your favorite part about it?
My favorite part about it, I would say just how fast, like how quick the time to insight is. It wasn't that interesting of an insight to see that like, oh, every single one of these lottery combinations has only been selected once, right? But it was so quick to figure that out. I just see one question here. Does anybody ever not finish the 2.5 years? What happens if people get a job offer halfway through the program? That's a great question. So you are on a non-compete contract when you're with the data school. So you're expected to be with us for that 2.5-year period because we've invested that training into you and we need to kind of realize the value of that training. So we value the training at about $25,000. If you were to get poached by another company where you're using those skills that we taught you and going somewhere else, you'd be responsible for a prorated amount of that training cost. So for instance, if you left after a year of being on placement, you'd be responsible, or whatever company was poaching you would be responsible for paying back $12,500 in training costs. And so it's, when I say prorated, you're kind of like paying it back over the course of those 2 years of consulting placements. If you decide that like data analytics just isn't for you, like can you go become a nurse or something like that, we're not going to charge that. Really, it's just to protect the investment that we've put into you and make sure that we keep our consultants for their full contracts. But that's a great question. It was definitely something that like I wanted to know a ton about when I was deciding whether I wanted to sign up for the data school. So if you want to reach out to me or to any of the people at the data school and learn about how they thought about that, I'm happy to talk to you more.
Great. We've got just a couple minutes left. Colin, you've shared some incredible resources. These slides have a lot of links. You've shared a lot of links in the chat. I've collected those, so we'll be able to bring them all together and share them in the follow-up with everybody who registered for this event. And if there's anything additional that you'd like me to include, just send it to me and I'll make sure that it makes it in that follow-up. And we're just so appreciative of the time that you've spent with us. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I also appreciate the fantastic folks from Flatiron who have applied for the data school already. And I'm hoping that we'll see some of them starting in cohort 6 in October.
Yes. And we will continue to share the application links on our job board and Hunter for our grads that are following along with that, and all of the events that you share with us as well. We'll include those in our weekly newsletters that go out to our grads.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you everybody who took the time to listen up today.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yep. Take care.